and welcome to the next episode of the LearnIt Podcast. I am super delighted and excited to have Lesleigh joining us today on the podcast virtually, although, we're far, but we're happy that we can make this work. Lesleigh, thank you so much for being here and for taking out the time of your busy day.
Thank you. Delighted to be here, and it's our first day of school, so very excited.
Best day to do this. First day of school, right into it. And I want to start, right from your childhood, Lesleigh, because it's always fun. It's always fun to learn about people's childhoods, how they grew up, where they grew up. Were you always surrounded by folks in the education space? How did you end up here? Give us your story, Lesleigh. How was your childhood? How would your parents describe you? What was your story there?
So I grew up in West Vancouver, and in the early 70s was in elementary school. And at that time, open area concept was all the rage. And so, no walls, lots of noise. I was the type of learner who needed direct instruction, and I didn't get that direct instruction. I would needlepoint under a desk. I am an outstanding needlepointer. And so in grade 2, 3, and 4, my parents got quite concerned. And fortunately, my aunt had an interest in supporting students. In fact, my parents took me to Simon Fraser University to get me assessed. And I can remember they asked a question about describe what a reservation is. And I said, that's when Daddy calls ahead to the hotel and makes sure that we have a room. And I guess, from my parents, they said the assessor looked and said, there's no problem with her comprehension. But I really struggled as a learner with decoding. And so my aunt, for about 2 years, I did one-on-one lessons with her. She would say that I didn't have any reading issues. I would say she taught me to read. But she would say, my house was very busy. My brother had just been born. My mom was not well, and that I needed attention. So fast forward and ended up in BC. High school starts in grade 7. And so went into, grade 8. So went into high school. My father took a job in Ottawa, and so he moved us halfway across the country.
Wow, right there and then.
Mm-hmm.
And would you, as someone who maybe perhaps struggled a little bit more in school, what would you say to other students that might be facing that today? Because, people tend to, especially these days, we jump to conclusions so easily. It's a lot more competitive, I feel, than it used to be before. So how would you, recommend or suggest kids that may be struggling today in similar areas to sort of overcome that and, see things from a different perspective?
I would say do not let yourself be defined by the struggle that you're having right now. If I could talk to my grade 2 self, I would say, you are a good learner. It's just right now, the instruction you're getting is not the instruction you need. And so I think for our students who are struggling, there are people who can help you. They may not be right in front of you right now, but there's someone out there. So keep looking for them.
Yeah, and I find that, that's why I feel that, teachers and educators play such an important role, not just as someone who, educates, but someone that, can really change the way students feel about themselves, can, instill that belief when they really need it. And so I guess that's something that's so magical that teachers do that I think sometimes they don't even realize that they're doing that. And sometimes even as students, it's not realized until a later stage as well.
And I think those of us who didn't go through with, straight A's, we might have more of an affinity for the student who might be a little bit of a mischief maker or who is not coming naturally to them, and perhaps are, I don't want to say more adept, but find ways to support those learners.
Absolutely. No, for sure. And talk to us, Lesleigh, in terms of, today you're the director of education. Right? You've been through this journey and it's very lovely to see that you're a student who has been through struggles as well. It wasn't just clear cut, always, easy for you. You went through your challenges and you persevered through them. Talk to us about how you ended up today as a director of education and what do you love most about what you're doing?
So I would say, and you asked earlier about my parents. So growing up in a household where it was an expectation that I would go to university. My sister would go to university. My brother would go to university. There was, at that point in the 70s and 80s, no other option. It was, you were going to post-secondary.
Yeah.
And so had always been involved with students somehow. So a Girl Guide myself, and then very actively in swimming, lifeguarding, teaching students. And so after university, spent my first degree, spent a year in France. I ended up being a nanny to two students, two children. I think that helped with my love of working with children. And then came back and was either looking at law or education. Both interested me. And I think very fortunate that I chose the educator route. I had applied to some Ontario universities, but I had also fallen in love with Newfoundland. I love the ocean, and so actually went to Memorial University and just had an incredible year of then learning how to be a teacher, and then going. When I graduated in 91, very few teaching jobs across the country. I had a teaching job offered to me or at least interview in City of York and Toronto, and also in North Vancouver. But the North Vancouver interview was partly offered to me because the cabin my parents had at Whistler, the person beside us was in charge of human resources. So even though I was pretty new to education, I knew I'm not getting that interview based on my merit. I'm getting it based on a connection. And did the City of York interview first. And they offered me a job. They offered me a grade 4-5 job. I said, well, do you have anything in secondary? Because I had trained 7 through 12. And basically the person on the phone was like, do you want the job or not? I'm like, oh, yes, I'd be delighted to have the job. It turned into a grade 7-8 job. And gosh, so privileged to have had that opportunity to teach all grades, but predominantly grade 7 and grade 8.
Wow. And I feel like it's sometimes, to your point, just about someone taking a chance on you, to be fair, those first jobs, those first experiences, they really, I guess they're the start of something really big. And now when you have gone through your career, you look back, you say, well, I'm so glad that happened. And someone thought that, I was the right person for this role and just took a shot on me. So I find that that's always an interesting piece of the puzzle.
Absolutely. And went into teaching with absolutely no plan on becoming a vice principal or principal. And in my second year of teaching, we got a new principal, Jan. Jen pulled me aside and she put this flyer in my face and said, you need to get this qualification. And I looked at it and it said, I think you have to have 5 years of teaching before you can do that. She said, well, get on that. I said, well, I will, but I can't make the years go faster. So she was the first one that really planted the seed for me in terms of, you've got some skill set. You might want to explore it.
Wow, that's inspirational. And can you share one of your key takeaways or your most memorable learning experiences from being a teacher to a principal and now on the board? From each of those three, if there's one thing you can share with our audience, a key takeaway, a piece of advice, what would it be on each of those three different positions?
I think it's the same for each one. So as a teacher, my job was to serve the students in front of me. Figure out who they were, what were their strengths, what were their area of needs, and how could I serve them. As a vice principal and principal, and I had the opportunity to be assistant principal in both Ottawa and Toronto as well, and then superintendent in the Sudbury area. And to me, that role was about service to staff so that they could serve students. And then as I move into the director role, and now I'm in year 8 as a director, to me, it's also about service. How am I serving the 11 trustees who are my bosses, and then about the 1,200 staff that we have in DSB1 so that they can serve our students? So to me, that is very public education, and leadership is really around service.
Yeah. But, I'm always curious to know, because I find that people end up becoming teachers because of the love to teach and the love to serve students. And, some go on like yourself to lead and be on the board. Do you sometimes feel like you miss being closer to the students? Or if so, how do you in your role today still stay connected to the students?
So even when I was a vice principal, principal system lead, etc., I always had a teaching role. And so if I go back to my student success role in Ottawa, that was a brand new role in 2003. The province introduced a literacy course. It's the Ontario Secondary School Literacy course, and they needed instructors. We weren't offering it during the day, so we ran it at night school. And so I was a system lead during the day, and then I taught at night because I really wanted to keep that connection. I've also taught a lot of adults through additional qualification, the principal's course, the superintendent course. As a superintendent, I would co-teach with principals and teachers. So the principal and I and the teacher maybe would plan a math lesson, and then we would go into a math class because I love being with students and really miss if I don't get into our schools. Currently in my role, I work really closely with our 3 student trustees and our student senate so that I can hear, what are students saying? We plan something, we implement it, but what does it actually look like in our schools?
Right. Yeah. And I find that every sort of leader has a different way, but there's always a link back to the student, some way to be connected to them, some way because that's what initially maybe draws you in, and it's that love for serving the kids and the future generation that really brings it all together. So that's lovely to see as well. And in your role today as a director of education, what is your most favorite part of what you do?
Hearing from students and staff. And so an example, we as a leadership team, so there's about 70 of us, we put together a video about what our word is for 24-25. And each of us gave a word. And interestingly, very few of us had the same word. So I was struggling between 2 words. I had amaze or impact. I really like impact because I think that's about our work. But to me, amaze is just, I want to, amaze in our student work, be amazed by our staff work. So I put that video out. We played it on our PA day, but I also put it in the welcome back email to staff, just, in case you want to watch it again. And I had invited staff. I said, I'd love to hear your word. And 2 teachers have already emailed back, one from our southern part of our school board, and her word is kindness. Another one from the Timmins area, and her word is joy. So I love that a few staff have taken me up on that offer of what's your word for 24-25?
Wow. I love that initiative. I think it's something all the boards should start doing because it's something so fun, but also brings people together, from the board to the teachers. I think it's a simple but fun idea. So hopefully people listening can start executing on that in some of their boards, right? And I would love to shift gears and learn a little bit more about how you manage all the different stakeholders involved. You've touched about the fact that there's students, there's teachers, there's the trustees, there's, even the ministry because you're at the board level. So, it's so many facets, and every parents, everybody wants to be happy and everybody wants it to be their own way. How do you manage these different forces from these individual stakeholders who might have different priorities?
And so a few stakeholders that come to mind, especially in the district I'm in, are the First Nations that we serve. They are an incredible partner. Our union presidents as well. If we do not have strong, respectful relationships with them, then our district's not going to soar. I think I'm a member of a really small senior team. There are 5 of us. So we have a business superintendent and then 3 academic superintendents and myself. And I think our success in working with the stakeholders that we serve is the unity and the consistency among the 5 of us. So if you were to ask Lisa a question, Chad, Steve, Al, we might use different words to describe the answer, but the answer is the same. We've thought about it as a senior team, and the 5 of us are committed to how we move forward in DSB1.
Wow, that's great. That's really lovely to hear. And I feel like, the fact that it's a more tighter core, smaller leadership team also makes it a bit more manageable to really make sure that everybody's on the same page and working towards that same purpose and those same priorities. So it's great to hear the additional facets of these stakeholders in the region as well. And in terms of, for the upcoming years as well, what are some of the biggest priorities for DSB1, let's say in the next 3 to 5 years?
So something that we're working on, and we've been working on it for a couple of years, is student attendance. How do we make our schools inviting, open, respectful so that our students want to come each and every day? We talk in DSB1 about having a positive future story, and we tie that to students graduating. And the only way students are going to graduate is if they come to school. And so we track our attendance daily, and all of our staff understand the important role they play. Our custodians are amazing about the relationship that they create with the student, because it's such a different relationship than with the teacher that student has. Our office staff. And so we're trying to build an inviting system where our students can be welcomed and supported by any staff member in the building. And then I would also say, along with that notion of positive future story, that students are in high school particularly are taking advantage of co-op education, of an apprenticeship, of doing something with their hands. Again, in the geographic region I'm in, there are so many opportunities where students can work very physically if that's what they want to do. And so how are they taking us up on opportunities that we make available to them?
Right. And I find that that's so powerful, especially at the high school level. If the kids can get out there, get their hands dirty, get that experience, I think it really forms a foundation because, when they go on to go into university or college or wherever their path takes them, if they have those opportunities in high school, I think it can really, fundamentally, help them differentiate and help them learn at a very early age some of the skills that they might only get to learn, 5, 10 years later. So it's wonderful to hear that that's an active priority and that's something that the students are actively thinking and doing today.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to also, move a little bit to talk now about the challenges. So a bit on the other side of the fence. What do you think are some of the biggest roadblocks, challenges in the industry from an education perspective in Canada today?
So we have some significant challenges in DSB1. They're challenges that other districts have, although I think ours are a little bit more intensified. And first and foremost, that's attracting qualified teachers. We've always, so in the past 8 years, have been challenged with attracting staff. So long before the pandemic. I don't know if the pandemic was the exact cause of why we're in the severe shortage that we're in now, but we have permanent teaching positions that are filled with some unqualified staff because we simply, staff can't find housing in some of our regions, or staff aren't attracted to very small northern communities. They're at a point in their life where that doesn't appeal to them. And so that is a significant challenge for us. I would say, although we are working hard to address that challenge and we've got supports in place for our unqualified teachers, I would say the other significant challenge that all districts are working through, and we aren't any different, are the mental health needs of our students. The level of anxiety, the addiction perhaps to any sort of technological device. We have students who are really struggling. And we have an amazing mental health team, and we have a huge number of mental health staff in our schools. Every high school has either a social worker or a child and youth worker. All elementary schools have at least part of a staff member, but it's not enough for our students. And so if I think of two significant issues for DSB1, one is attracting qualified staff, and the second would be just the level of mental health needs for our students. And that's students kind of kindergarten to grade 12. It's more and more we're seeing mental health needs with our students who are in primary.
Right. That's super interesting that you say that, Leslie. And I know that of course, the recent ban on the use of cell phones in the classroom is one that I know that a lot of teachers have sort of, starting to look at. Today's the first day of classes, so I'm a little bit, excited to see what that turns out. But do you think that's sort of a step in the right direction? And, if there were no barriers, let's say it was a perfect wall, you had the magic dice and you could do what you want, how would you approach some of these issues?
I think with the staffing issue, I think it's directly tied to housing and people understanding what the North can offer. It's an incredible way to live your life.
Yeah.
If you're fortunate enough to have access to water up here, it's like paddling through a group of seven painting. Like, it's just incredible. With our students, we have some examples of we have a group of students that we took on a trip. I wasn't able to go, but they get off a train north of Cochrane and there's no cell service. And so the students are there for a week and they have no connectivity. And it is amazing to hear the students talk about how much they enjoy being away from a text or Instagram or whatever other social technology they're on. And you can almost, my colleague that was with them, when the train was getting back into connectivity, some of the students are like, oh, I don't want to get back into all that. Like, I really don't want to hear about what's been happening. And so I think the reduction of not having technology in the classroom for personal use is absolutely the way to go. I think it's also in the language that we use, like rather than banning it, it's no, we have technology for you for your learning.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, this is learning. Your job is to learn. You do not need to be on any sort of social for that learning, unless, of course, you're doing some statistical analysis on something around TikTok. But for the most part, you don't need to be on social. And so helping students understand, but also modeling for students. When we're outside, if it's younger ones on nutrition break, engaging in conversation with them. Because some of them, it's amazing the number of teenagers who don't want to talk on the telephone anymore. You say, oh, you have to call if you want that. They're like, I have to call. Can't I just text? No, you have to call. And so how are we helping students build those skill sets?
I love that experience and that story of just going to a place where you don't have that connectivity. And I remember personally myself, it was last month and I was traveling and I went to a retreat where there was no cell service, and I actually did not know that there's no cell service. And I show up and I'm like, okay, I'm there for like 4 days now. And when I got back, I didn't feel the urge to turn back that phone. It just felt like, what, it felt so good to be at peace and to just know that you can spend time with nature and with your friends. And those memories and those experiences are the ones that you really remember, because they're the ones where the phone wasn't involved. You don't really remember the time where you used your phone and where this happened. It's always about an experience where you were with someone or interacting with your friends. So I find that really special. And I guess that's one of the benefits of being in the North as well, that you get to have more areas like these where the kids can go and experience life without their technology. So that's incredibly powerful.
And I would also say we've worked really hard with our staff about disconnecting from work. The government mandated a disconnecting procedure, but we had put that in place long before with our leadership team that, no, this is your weekend. This is your vacation time. And I can remember some of the colleagues I work with saying, that's really hard on us if we're not allowed to email people during vacation. I said, we need to get better organized. They deserve their time off, and the number of school leaders who have expressed appreciation for that. It's something we owe our staff to do that.
Yeah, it's lovely to hear that. It goes to everybody, and it applies to all of them. That's beautiful. And moving into your, the experiences that you have, I'm curious to know, when you look back at your career, what do you hope that your legacy would be in the board?
So in this district, I hope my legacy is that, and I know I've said it before, but more students have a positive future story, and that our staff feel honored and valued for what they bring to the role.
Beautiful. That's lovely. All right, Leslie, I'm going to shift gears into my favorite part of the podcast, which is the rapid fire round. So over here, I'm going to give you a question. It'll be easy questions, real quick, get to know you a bit more personally, keeping your responses under 1 minute. We'll go through some of these questions. Is it good from your end? Good. All right, let's kick off. So the first question I have for you is, what is your favorite book on leadership or education?
Oh my goodness, I love so many books. So that's, I'm always reading. It's an older book, but Primal Leadership by Daniel Goleman, I think is an incredibly powerful book.
Okay, well, that's going to go on my to-do list because I have not read that one. So thanks for that.
It's older. It's probably 20 years old now.
Oh, wow. Okay. Before my time, maybe, but that's something I'll add to my list. Next question. What is one part of your daily routine that you cannot skip?
Oh, I have to eat food. I am grumpy if I do not have food.
We're very similar then, Leslie, because I'm the same. I enjoy my meals and I need to have them at a time where, if I don't have them, then I get grumpy too. What is, moving on here, what is your favorite thing to do outside of work?
These are hard questions because I have so many favorite things. I'm going to say spending time with my husband and our rescue dog. That, that's home for me. And if I could be outside on our lake, that's even better.
Wow. Okay. So rescue, that sounds like a perfect, relaxing time by the lake with the dog, the husband. That sounds lovely. Great. And if it wasn't for education, what industry do you think you'd be pursuing today?
Do you know what I would love to be is a professional race car driver.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. I did not see that one coming. A professional race car driver. Tell us about that. How do you get interested in that?
So I grew up, I've never taken a lesson, so of course I'm nowhere near my goal, but grew up leaving from West Vancouver, driving the 99 highway up to Whistler. And if you've ever had the chance to do that, there are lots of curves and turns, and they've worked on that highway significantly. But I just, going back about 2 decades, a good friend of mine from Ottawa came. He's a motorcyclist, an instructor, and we're driving. He's like, "Oh, you like these corners?" I do. So I just think that would be incredible.
That sounds very exhilarating. It's super, super fun as well. All right. Next question here. Who is one role model that has inspired you in your career?
Again, really, really hard to answer these questions. I think it's a multitude of role models. So it's the principal I told you about, Jan. It's Robin, who is a superintendent who's now in heaven. It's Jean, who's a superintendent, who was my director in Rainbow, who's also in heaven. It's colleagues that I've worked with. I'm amazed by strengths that people have. And I look at them, I'm like, I wonder how I could be a little bit more like them.
Wow, that's beautiful. Very well said. And last one to close us out on the rapid fire round. What is one piece of advice you'd give to aspiring educators?
Be kind to yourself and surround yourself by incredible people.
Okay, that's even a better title. Be kind to yourself and surround yourself with lovely people. And I've always believed that, there's a saying that you are the sum total of the 5 closest people you're with. And I feel that very strongly because who you surround yourself with has such a big impact on you. And when I talk to students today, I tell them the same thing. I say, you know what? Think about who you want to surround yourself with and be with people that you want to be like. And you will naturally end up becoming like them too. So that's a lovely piece of advice over there. And just closing off here, Leslie, what do you see in terms of the vision for DSB1? What do you think, where do you see yourself, DSB1, the next 5, 10, 15 years? What's next for you? What do you see next for the board?
So for myself personally, in the next, hopefully 2 years, I will have finished my PhD, which is in trying to determine a link between collective leader efficacy and student attendance. So far, we're seeing great results, but that for me personally, and then in a couple of years, retirement is not very far off. And for DSB1, it's an incredible learning organization. And my hope is that each and every year we get better, we learn, we're stronger together, we're kind to one another, and that more of our students have that positive future story, something they absolutely love, and that they got that spark in one of our schools.
Beautiful. That's a lovely note to end off on, Leslie. So thank you so much for spending your time with us today, sharing your insights. I learned that you would be a race car driver, which is the best thing I've heard today. So thank you so much for your time. It was delightful to have you here today.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. So nice to meet you.
One district,
one team,
one word.
This year, we embark on the challenge of individually choosing one word that inspires each of us to do what we do each and every day at DSB1.
My word is.
My word is.
My word is.
empowerment,
Growth. Believe.
Perseverance.
Nurture.
Purposeful.
Together.
Amaze.
Community.
Possibilities.
impact,
Gratitude.
Potential.
Students.
Gift.
Passion.
Connection.
perseverance,
Community.
Clarity.
Authenticity.
Cultivate.
Mentoring.
Voice.
Intentional.
Insight.
clear,
Support.
belonging,
Journey.
Purposeful.
Collaboration.
Focus.
Adventure.
Connect.
Family.
Potential.
Understanding.
Evolve.
Vitality.
Genuine.
Pause.
Present.
Anticipation.
Reconnect.
purposeful,
Well-being.
Teamwork.
Flexibility.
Potential.
Renewed.
Influence.
Risk.
Impact.
Empower.
Now it's your turn.
What's the one word that will inspire you this school year?
Together.
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 we inspire innovation,
We inspire innovation.
We inspire innovation.
and a passion for learning.